Okay, so today we have the chairwoman of the House Oversight Committee, Carolyn Maloney. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Brian, for inviting me. Today's a very special day for all New Yorkers. It's 9/11, the attack, the terrorism attack, the worst on American soil, and the only time that innocent Americans were attacked for just waking up and going to work like you did today and I did today. It was a very solemn event. They read all of the names of the almost 3,000 people who died on that day, and we were honored with the presence of Vice President Biden and Jill Biden, who came to show their respect, and of course all the families and supporters. We lost so many of our fire and our police that day, and it's a day that we built a beautiful, really, tribute to remember them.
I really appreciate you bringing that up. You know, I'm from New Jersey. My whole family's from New Jersey, New York as well. So that means a lot. So let's jump into Postmaster General Louis DeJoy. At the last DeJoy hearing, Congressman Jim Cooper had asked DeJoy if he paid back top executives of his former company for contributing to Trump's campaign by giving them bonuses. And here's what he said.
Mr. DeJoy, as a mega donor for the Trump campaign, you were picked along with Michael Cohen and Elliot Broidy, two men who have already pled guilty to felonies, to be the three deputy finance chairmen of the Republican National Committee. Did you pay back several of your top executives for contributing to Trump's campaign by bonusing or rewarding them?
That's an outrageous claim, sir, and I resent it.
I'm just asking a question.
The answer is no.
Not only that he didn't, but that it's an outrageous claim and that he resents it. And yet now former employees of that company, New Breed Logistics, have come out and said that, in fact, they were encouraged to do exactly that, to donate to candidates and then reimburse through bonuses, which is a straw donor scheme. So how does your committee progress from here?
Well, that's a very serious allegation. If proven, it's a felony. It's against the law. And it is being investigated. I have requested information and documents from the Board of Governors and from him and from others. We are expecting these documents next week. If not, we'll have to subpoena them. So it's under investigation, and it's very, very serious.
And who runs this investigation? Is Oversight conducting the investigation, or is it the Department of Justice?
There are numerous investigations. I know that there is an Inspector General investigation from Post Office that is looking into his financial dealings and possible conflicts of interest because he had many investments and a history of investing in the Post Office's competitors. There's always been a movement to try to privatize it, even though it's in our Constitution and a pillar of our democracy.
Right.
But that's out there, that investigation. I know that several Department of Justice officials from North Carolina, the AG there mentioned he may investigate it. Several have made comments. I don't know whether they're true or not. People are making these comments. But one thing that's very, very important that you raised in your questioning, Brian, is that at the hearing, he said that's not true. I've never done that. It's not true at all. Well, if it is true, then that's lying under oath. Another very, very serious felony.
If DOJ is conducting an investigation, how do we trust Bill Barr's Department of Justice to actually faithfully conduct this probe?
I wouldn't trust them 2 inches. I would
Right.
trust an AG from North Carolina, an AG from New York or New Jersey, or some have made statements. I don't know how true they are, but I do know the IG is looking into various allegations.
And I think it's important to remember, too, that there's no statute of limitations for this in North Carolina. So is the point of these investigations, is something that's being taken into account here the fact that they need to move quickly?
Well, the investigations are separate, of course, from my position, that they do have to move quickly, but they're independent and they're conducting it on their own time frame. But I have questions of how he got appointed in the first place. We know that there was a search firm that was hired, Reynolds. They came forward with 50 names. His name wasn't on the list. So how in the world did he get appointed in the first place? And as you know, we started the hearing and looking into his activities, because after a very short period, he was slowing down the mail. And this was across the country. Your state, California, everywhere, every state had stories of slowing down the mail. In my area, they tell me it's 5 to 6 days late. They told me it was 13 days late in Virginia. So it's all around. So we wanted to know, why is this happening? Of course, we called him into a hearing. He denied everything. This has never happened. It's not true. But then we received a document, an internal document from workers at the post office that gave it to us. It was an internal document to brief him that showed that all of this had slowed down within the first 2 months he was there, falling anywhere from 6 to 8 points in productivity. Believe me, Brian, if he was in the private sector, he would have been out the door immediately after this report surfaced. Why do you hire someone? You hire them to come in and make it better. Certainly build on what's there, not to come in and dismantle it. Out of the hearing, we had one big success. He promised he would no longer work to dismantle the post office. He would stop picking up the blue post office boxes. He'd stop denying overtime if it was needed to process the mail. And very importantly was the processing machines. These machines can process 30,000 pieces of mail in 1 hour. They were disconnected, thrown away, or put in closets. We're trying to get them reinstated. Who in the world takes these type of management steps in the middle of a pandemic when so many people are depending on their mail, particularly veterans? They get all their medications through the mail, seniors, business people, you name it, and then also so close to such an important election. So he said he would stop this activity until after the pandemic and after the election. That was a gain, but we now want him to rebuild the damage he already caused and put it back the way it was before.
Jumping back into the straw donor scheme, if it's discovered that in fact he had committed a campaign finance violation, what's the specific punishment?
It would be determined by a judge and a jury, I would assume. So I can't predict what they would do, but it would be a felony. That's a very serious crime.
And we've seen, from other members of the Trump inner circle who have also committed campaign finance violations, that they've ended up in prison. So I know states are suing DeJoy too. Does he have personal legal exposure in these situations?
I really don't know. I'm trying to get the post office working and trying to pass a bill. When this was happening at the post office, the speaker took an unprecedented act and called us into session on a Saturday to pass a bill that I had put in to rectify his actions, which would have funded it at $25 billion, which is what the Board of Governors said was needed just to make them whole from the pandemic, and also reverse the actions that he has taken. It passed overwhelmingly. We even picked up 26 Republicans who voted with us. It's now in Mitch McConnell's desk waiting for a passage. We should get it to the floor and make sure that the post office is funded appropriately for this election and always.
And what blows my mind about that is that the failure of the post office disproportionately impacts rural America. They're the ones who don't have Rite Aid and CVS on every corner to get their medications. They're the ones who rely on the post office to send livestock. They're the ones who, might not have broadband access as easily, as readily available as everyone else in cities. And so they might not be able to pay their bills online. This has a disproportionate impact on the people that Mitch McConnell himself is serving.
Well, I'd say you're absolutely correct. It's a very, very important point. And what's so interesting to me is that Republicans tend to represent more rural areas. You would think that they would be all over and advocating and working very hard to get this through. I wish we could have a vote in the Senate. I urge your listeners to call their senators to urge Mitch McConnell to put it out for a vote. The post office is one of the few things mentioned in the responsibilities mentioned in the Constitution. It's a pillar of our democracy. It affects each and every one of us, and it especially affects rural America. I never understood this. You brought this point up because most Republicans represent rural areas. Now, one of the beauties of the post office, you can mail something in your home state of New Jersey, and it can go all the way to California for 55 cents, right, or just be a birth card going just a few blocks. So it's the same cost. If we privatized the post office, the cost of mail would go up dramatically, right, for rural America and hurt them. So really, it should be Republicans leading the fight to preserve the post office and to fund it appropriately and to depoliticize it. I have a bill in that we're marking up next week that would work to make the post office a nonpartisan organization. It should be above politics. It serves Republicans, Democrats, everyone. And it merely says that a postmaster general and board members cannot engage in political activities. Mr. DeJoy and also Mr. Duncan, the chairman of the board, are both mega donors, I mean millions, to the Republican Party and to President Trump, and involved in all these party activities. It should be a nonpartisan people project. The post office belongs to everyone, to every American. It's an American institution, and I would say it's one of our most beloved institutions. Certainly during a pandemic when you need it for your medications, and it's the only way you're getting your packages in your mail.
Completely agree. So okay, I want to walk through this in terms of getting rid of DeJoy, which is obviously a top priority. We know that the Board of Governors won't do it. They're mostly Trump appointees, and 4 out of 6 of them are Republicans. He's not going to resign. He might face criminal exposure, but that legal process takes time. There is another option, and that is that DeJoy is a civil officer as Postmaster General. Civil officers are impeachable. If it's proven that he's committed the criminal act of lying to Congress, like you said, is that grounds for impeachment, and is that action that you would commit to taking?
Well, first we have to take one step at a time. We began this investigation on the slowed mail, and then all of a sudden other documents emerged. Not only that he was misleading us on that and saying he didn't know about it, when of course he was briefed that his activities had done this. But then we started getting documents from people who have worked for him. Other allegations have come forward, allegations about mishandling his finances and conflicts of interest in his finances. But
Right.
all of this has to be proven. It's at this point just an allegation, a charge. So it is now in front of an IG. It may be in front of an AG in another state, but we don't know that yet. No one has publicly said. They've said they're interested. They've asked for documents, but they haven't said that they have an official investigation yet. And you have to see what happens and what comes out of it. And we have to go through the process and receive the documents. At first, he was not giving us documents. We wrote a 10-page letter asking for documents, and it was signed not only by me and as chair of oversight, but many, many other chairmen, and very unusual, the speaker and the minority leader, Schumer, both signed it. He did nothing. He didn't respond. We had the hearing. He was supposed to give us documents that coming Wednesday. Nothing came. Then on Friday, we gave him 2 more days. Nothing came. We had no other choice but to subpoena him. We had to wait 48 hours, notify everyone. The subpoena has been given. We started getting documents this past Friday. We're expecting more documents. We haven't gotten all that we asked for, but at this point they are cooperating and sending over documents. We have to analyze it. We have to work on it. We have to come forward with a report. And as I said, it's not only the Oversight Committee, several other areas are looking at it, IGs and allegations of other independent groups and other official groups looking at mismanagement. People care deeply about the post office. They really do. The amount of response, the amount of mail, it's headlines across this country documenting the slowed down mail. For what reason? That you hired a postmaster general that slowed it down? Right. I'm telling you, I don't understand how he got hired in the first place. And he shouldn't have been hired in the first place.
To go back to that question, if it is shown, and I know the process is still playing out, if it is proven that there was misconduct, Would impeachment be a possible avenue that the committee and Congress, more broadly, would consider?
We have to see what comes out of it. That, of course, is a joint decision. It would be handled by the Judiciary Committee, which is our process, not the Oversight Committee. We're the investigatory committee, but the investigation will be completed. It will be shared with all members of Congress and the public, and we have to see what it is, what it says, and go from there. If it is extremely serious, I expect that my colleague Jerry Nadler would take a very serious look at it, but that is his decision, and ultimately it's the Speaker's decision. Ultimately, it's the decision of every member of Congress. When we moved to impeach the president, at first there was not a lot of support for it, but after he went on national television and said that he would welcome the interference of a foreign government in our election, that's an impeachable offense.
Right.
It was after that action that I came out for impeachment, and many other people did too. So it depends what comes out of this report, and we don't really know right now. There are a lot of allegations from people that work for him, but we need to talk to them and we need to see the evidence.
So one last question to kind of build on what you said about subpoenaing documents. You've subpoenaed those documents because he had failed to submit them. What if the delay is the point here? Like, what if he knows he can stall and that you'll issue a subpoena and that has a new deadline where you have to wait X amount of hours, and then that he can ultimately waste enough time that it'll be close enough to the election anyway?
We'll just, we've moved pretty quickly, I would say, to get these documents, and we've moved pretty quickly with the legislation, and we've moved quickly with the oversight. We're having another hearing on Monday in a subcommittee with another one of the members of the Board of Governors who is a Democrat. So we will be listening to that information. We'll be gathering information and moving forward. But there are many more questions than answers at this point. And we have to give them the opportunity to respond to a request. And if they don't respond, then we can move to the seriousness of a subpoena.
I can just say, a lot of the hopelessness that Americans feel stems from the issue of the post office in particular. We see someone as obstinate as Louis DeJoy, and he's really just become the face of corruption in broad daylight. So, sending trucks with no mail in them, creating massive delays on like we were saying before, prescription drugs, dead livestock, late bills. A lot of people are looking at your committee as our only vestige of hope against this corruption. So I know I speak for a lot of people in saying that I hope you are as aggressive as humanly possible when it comes to this issue. And it sounds like that you are.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. And let's continue talking. There are many other steps going forward, and we're continuing to get information every day. I did call upon the Board of Governors to suspend his appointment pending the outcome of these investigations. But they were appointed by Trump, and the chairman is also a mega donor, like his appointee, Mr.
Right.
DeJoy. So it's very important, this legislation I put forward. We need to pass it. We need to take politics out of the post office and return it to the American people.
That's really well said. Well, Congresswoman Maloney, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Well, thank you. I've listened to your program. It's always interesting, and it's an honor to be on it. Some of my best friends have been on your program, so it's my honor to join them. Thank you.